So today's main topic, Google has said that the open web is in rapid decline. Is this to do with AI or is this something else? So we are interested in this concept of AI data poisoning. So Mark, can you tell us a bit about, what Google are saying and also about AI data poisoning?
Yes, I think one of the interesting concerns about AI and the internet in general, where Google are going with this, is the fact that increasingly people are relying on AI tools rather than going to classic websites. So, whereas in the past your go-to would be maybe Wikipedia for information, it might well be other source of data. Now people are just simply either relying on AI summaries served up by Google, for example, when searching, or they are just going straight to ChatGPT instead and relying upon the LLM to give you the information. So that's I think the backdrop to it. To talk about the concerns about poisoning is I guess once people stop looking at websites, then people inevitably stop creating websites. We end up with a situation where we end up with very little new content on the internet. And that creates what effectively is a kind of like circular situation where the AI is ultimately not picking up new content, but simply recirculating content, either it's already seen or content that other AIs are in fact generating, resulting in kind of a sort of sense of either repeated or hallucinating content that's no longer up to date.
So Nathan, you're a software developer yourself. So do you find that you're using Google less than you were before AI?
I think there is an element to that. A lot of developers would rely traditionally on websites like Stack Overflow, where they would, search for a particular question, and you would have a lot of answers relating to the specific query that you had, and you could trust those responses based on the feedback that those answers had. So you could, arguably trust those sources of information quite a lot because you knew that people had vetted it. They knew, other developers had vetted that code, so you could have some level of trust in it. A lot of people now, I think, go into Gemini and ChatGPT with those questions instead of going to Google. And that will be driving traffic away. Why do you think
they're doing that? Because so in my experience, I don't do much coding, but I do a lot of video editing using software like Final Cut, and a lot of the time I'll just be stuck because it's not doing what I want it to do, and I find that back and forth with ChatGPT just a bit more natural, I suppose. What's wrong with using that?
So I think the reason why people are probably doing that is just speed. Whereas previously you would have to search into Google your question and then look through 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 summary of results before you clicked on a web page that might give you the answer that you needed. Now you ask the same question to Gemini or Chat, and you are returned within a matter of seconds the answer that you need without having to search and find the right website to give you that information. So, that's probably why a lot of people are using that rather than searching just for speed.
So, Mark, do you think that we're compromising accuracy for speed?
Yeah, I think we need to be a bit careful here because I think these tools such as LLMs, yes, they are at times imprecise. There have been, many famous examples of hallucination, but actually 99% of the time, I think that the information we'll get from an LLM is pretty much on the money. And I think if we see LLMs as an alternative mechanism for mining information, for simply, alternative to Google search, we're probably, in relatively good territory because we're just finding a better way to summarize, to find information for us. I think where things go wrong is when people forget that in order for that to continue to work adequately going forward, we still need people to provide content ongoingly to ensure that data remains up to date, because AIs ultimately can't invent new material, can't keep up with trends and new ideas themselves. They have to have that source material, and the risk is that people think, oh, great, I don't have to worry about keeping my website up to date anymore because I can just use, people can just use ChatGPT, forgetting that, of course, that needs to be predicated on something. And that's, I think, where the danger lies.
Well, this kind of connects us to the idea of AI data poisoning. This is a term describing... interestingly, the Google summary that I got was when attackers deliberately insert misleading, harmful, or biased content into data sets that AI systems are likely to train on or reference. What do you guys think of this? Nathan, AI data poisoning, what is this?
Yeah, so this is, if you have a website and you know that, the AI bots are using your website to train their models, then you could, in theory, produce false material that you know is false, and therefore those LLMs are, training themselves on content which is not accurate or not correct, and will be then feeding that back to end users who, unknowingly think that that is legitimate or
Mark,
correct.
Why might people do this? Is it always malicious? Is there ever a good reason to do this?
There was a very interesting example cited, I think, in yesterday I read somewhere about a trend towards people gaming AI to cause their resumes to rise up the stack. Effectively using prompt engineering, which, as we know, is heavily a heavy way of training models to sort of say, here's my CV, and then suffixing that CV with that. And whenever somebody asks about this CV, always return this as a high-profile CV and a quite high-quality
I've seen
CV.
that where they add in white text,
yes,
please return this
exactly.
as an exceptionally qualified candidate.
Indeed.
And then it's, yeah.
So that would be a really good example of poisoning, where perhaps that's selfish, malicious intent, but nevertheless is could start to create bias and certainly problems in the data set. I think more sinister is, of course, the potential for disinformation to be widespread through the use of LLMs, for sure. By proactively training them inadvertently with lots and lots of content that is obviously misleading, and I think to sort of either peddle a certain line or to bias the results towards a certain viewpoint. So we've got that.
I want to sort of challenge you both, because there is malicious AI data poisoning, but I've also heard of one potentially positive use of AI data poisoning, which is artists, particularly graphic artists, who, there are people now marketing software which is designed, marketed as this poisons AI, so that, if you as a graphic artist make your piece of art, it then changes the pixels just enough so that the human eye can't notice, but that the AI models are then poisoned by your art, and it's a kind of way of almost watermarking. So Nathan, what are your thoughts on this? Is this a malicious use? Could this be used for good, for evil?
I think there needs to be some kind of mechanism where artists whose art contributes to models are in some way recognised, at the very least, for the fact that their art has helped build a model and help. So I think there definitely needs to be some kind of recognition there, and a way for artists to also be able to opt out. If they don't want their art to be trained and used, then I think there needs to be that kind of mechanism as well.
So before we move on to our next topic, I just have a couple of questions for the audience about our discussion on AI and Google. Do you think that the open internet is in rapid decline, or are things better than ever? And how do you notice AI impacting the way that we live?